Hi, I'm Catherine from Literacy Volunteers, and this is session 5 in our series on the 100 civics questions. This session includes 13 questions focused on the Constitution. First, as a reminder, we learned last session about the Declaration of Independence, when the 13 colonies declared or announced that they were free. They were no longer part of England. They wanted to be their own separate country. But England did not want to let the colonies become independent, so they fought a war. That war was called the American Revolutionary War, and it lasted until 1783. So it wasn't for 11 years after the Declaration of Independence. It took 11 years until our country created our current Constitution. So during that time, we had a temporary government that had a lot of problems, that was just trying to keep the 13 new states together to fight in the war against England. And then after the war had ended and they had time to see how that temporary government was working, they realized we need to design a really thoughtful plan for our government. We need to create a new plan for our government. And a reminder, a constitution is a document that explains how the government will work. So for example, in our constitution, it explains that we will not have a king, that people will vote for president. It says that the president cannot make up new laws by himself or herself. Okay, the Constitution explains how the government will work. So, our first question for today: what is the supreme law of the land? Supreme means above all the others, the most powerful. Law means a set of rules for the country. And this expression of the land just means of the United States, of the country. Okay, so what is the most powerful law of the United States? It's the Constitution. The Constitution controls all of the laws and all of the parts of government. The Constitution says what Congress can do, what kind of laws they can pass. It says what the president can do and cannot do. It says what the Supreme Court and the other courts can do and what they cannot do. So what is the supreme law of the land? The Constitution. Good. The idea of self-government is in the first 3 words of the Constitution. What are these words? First, let's explain the term self-government. Self-government means the citizens control the government. The citizens are responsible for the government. They make the decisions about the government. The first 3 words of the Constitution are "we the people." And the way the Constitution goes, it basically says, we the people create this Constitution in order to form a better union of all of the states, in order to establish justice, to ensure peace, to defend our country, to promote well-being of all the citizens, and to secure liberty, to make sure that there is freedom for ourselves, they said at the time, and all the future generations, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all the way up to today, and hopefully for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, and so forth. The idea of self-government is in the first 3 words of the Constitution. What are these words? We the people. Good. What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? First, we need to explain the term branch of government. The idea is that the government is kind of like a tree with a lot of different branches, a lot of different parts. So each part of the government is called a branch, one part of the government. So you can see here this tree has has three major parts, three big branches, okay? In our government, one branch is called the executive branch. It's about the president and all the powers that the president has. We'll learn more about that in a future session. Another branch is the legislative branch, Congress, and the laws that they can make. Again, we'll learn about that in a future video. And the Supreme Court, the third branch is called the judicial branch. So we have three branches or parts of government. One of the big ideas that the founders had, the creators of our Constitution had, was in order to make sure that nobody becomes really powerful like that King of England was, we want to separate all the different powers of government. Let's divide it up and give different people different parts of the power so nobody has all the power like the King of England did. So they separated the power into the three branches. So some of the power goes to the executive branch, the president. Some of the power goes to the legislative branch, Congress. And some of the power goes to the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and all the other courts. So what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? Separation of powers. Good. Now we're going to do two questions together. Under the Constitution, some powers belong to the federal government. What is one power of the federal government, which means the national government? And then the other question that goes with that is under the Constitution, some powers belong to the states. What is one power of the states? Okay, so we're going to dive into these two questions together. Just like they wanted to divide the power between different branches, they separated power between the three branches. They also divided power between what power does the national government have and what power do the state governments have for the people living in their states. Again, we don't want anyone who has as much power as the king had, so let's divide the power some more. The national government gets some power, the state governments get some power, okay? So for example, in our system, the national government, the federal government, is responsible for printing money. All of our money has the United States on it. We don't have Virginia money. People in Maryland don't have Maryland money. We have United States money. So that's a federal government, a national government power. The state governments are responsible for making decisions about people's driver's licenses. So when you get a driver's license, it has the name of the state on it. And different states can have different rules. One state might say you can get a driver's license when you're 16. Another state might say you can get a driver's license when you're 14. States can say you have to pass a certain kind of test to get a driver's license, and another state might have a different test. Okay, so each state makes its own rules about driver's licenses. Driver's licenses are a state power. Okay, so the questions then, under the Constitution, some powers belong to the federal government. What is one power of the federal government? To print money. Good. Under the Constitution, some powers belong to the states. What is one power of the states? To give a driver's license. Okay. Our next question is, what is an amendment? First, let's look at an example.
Well, children will go to bed at 8 p.m., but then as the children get older, they can make an amendment to that rule and the children will go to bed at 9 p.m.
In the Constitution, there have been many amendments. For example, at the time of the original Constitution, in most states, only men could vote. Many years later, there was an amendment to the Constitution guaranteeing that men and women can vote. What is an amendment? A change. How many amendments does the Constitution have? 27. This is a timeline that shows all the years that different amendments were passed. There were several amendments right around 1800. There were some more amendments in the 1860s. Then there were more amendments from 1913 to 1992. There have been, there have been 11 amendments in the 1900s. Overall, the total is 27 amendments. So how many amendments does the Constitution have? 27. Good. What do we call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? The Constitution originally included a list of all the powers of the government, but then they added a set of 10 amendments that list specific rights that people have. This list of rights that are in the first 10 amendments is called the Bill of Rights. Bill is a confusing word here. Bill can be a first name, like Bill Clinton, one of our presidents. A dollar bill has the word bill in it. A bill can be like you have to pay bills. You have to pay your water bill or your cable bill or your phone bill. A bill can be a proposal for a new law. In this case, the Bill of Rights is the list of rights in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. What do we call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? The Bill of Rights. What is one right or freedom in the First Amendment? The First Amendment includes a number of rights. One of them is freedom of speech. In these pictures, you can see groups of people getting together to express, to speak on an issue that they feel strongly about. So freedom of speech includes what you say and also signs that you carry. And here's an example of a young citizen using his freedom of speech to speak at a rally or to bring signs to a protest event. What is one right or freedom in the First Amendment? Freedom of speech. What is freedom of religion? Freedom of religion means that you can practice any religion. You can be a part of any religion that you want to be, and you also have the right to not have a religion, to have no religion. So what is freedom of religion? We can practice any religion or no religion. What are two rights of everyone living in the United States? Freedom of speech and freedom of religion. This question points out that these are rights of everyone living in the United States. You do not have to be a citizen to have freedom of speech and freedom of religion. All of the rights in the Bill of Rights apply to everyone who lives in the United States. What are two rights of everyone living in the United States? Freedom of speech and freedom of religion. We're pairing two questions together. There are 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. Describe one of them. And another question, how old do citizens have to be to vote for president? First, let's talk about who can vote in the United States. This has changed in the history of our country. Originally, As we talked about earlier, only white men could vote in most states. In 1870, there was an amendment to the Constitution that says that people of any race can vote. Here, you can see it down here. It's the 15th Amendment. The right to vote shall not be denied based on race or color. So people of any race can vote. Another amendment about voting said that women can vote. It was in 1920, and it was the 19th Amendment. The right to vote shall not be denied based on sex, based on whether you are a man or a woman. And this is a picture of women protesting in front of the White House, asking the president at the time, Woodrow Wilson, to support women getting the right to vote. Another amendment to the Constitution about voting was in 1964. The 24th Amendment said the right to vote shall not be denied based on whether you pay. In many states, the government would make people pay a special tax. It was called a poll tax or a voting tax. If you wanted to vote, you had to be able to pay it. And many states used that poll tax, that voting tax, as a way to prevent black people from voting. So this amendment was passed in 1964 saying you cannot make someone pay to vote. One more amendment about voting was in 1971. It said that 18-year-old citizens can vote. It was the 26th Amendment saying 18-year-olds can vote. There are 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. Describe one of them. 18-year-old citizens can vote. How old do citizens have to be to vote for president? 18. Here is a list of all the questions we did during this session. If you want to pause here so you can practice all the questions. You can also practice if you have the citizenship textbook that we use in our program. The questions that we did today go with Chapter 7 in the textbook. Chapter 7 from the textbook matches up with what we learned today. We'll see you next time.